All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Geoff, where our mission, everybody knows our mission, man, is to bring guests in from all over the world, from different professionals. I mean, from homelessness to CEOs, from uneducated to doctors, and come in and give you some empowering tools to flip the switch on your stinking thinking. Change the direction of that narrative that you're talking to yourself about, you're listening to yourself, talk to yourself about, right? And break the chain, man, get you free from this stuff, right? And the guests we have coming on today, I can't wait to get him up here. Just had a couple minutes to talk to him. And he's really going to come in here and get ready like we always ask. Make sure you show him some love, right? And communicate with us via chat. If you have a question, we'll do our best to get to it. And know that, oh man, this gentleman here, he's highly educated, military guy, but he understands the power of connection. He understands speaking in a language that people can gather and connect with him on. So just some phenomenal things. And for those of you that don't know, my name is Geoff Tyson. I'm affectionately known as the Comeback King. And I got that name because people have seen me help other people hit the reset button in relationships, failed businesses, starting businesses, right? And understand the power of the comeback. Step into the comeback with courage, confidence, and clarity, and make differences in their life, just like this gentleman that I'm going to bring up here in just a minute will do for you as well. So, and I want to thank everybody that's been hanging with us, and we're getting down to the end of the year, and man, we have some great things coming in the Fireside Chat, which was our joint venture with Comeback King Enterprises, in that Fireside Chat and Summit Series around from heartbreak to healing, pathways to extraordinary love after divorce, right? Being able to find love again. Oh man! So anyhow, I want you to get ready. You know the drill. So like, subscribe, set notification bells up, and let me just give you a quick highlight of who we're going to be talking to. This gentleman, Doctor. Excuse me. Man. Whew. All right, we'll try that again. So Dr. Chapman, this gentleman I met not too long ago, is a licensed psychologist in different states in the country. I mean, his ex-military, so we salute the man for his military service. And he blends his clinical expertise with warm humor, right? To me, that means when you're done talking to him, you connected with him, right? He brings it down to where we can all connect. Man, that's a gift, right? And our expertise with warm humor connects in love. It connects in love, leadership, and life transition. So he connects those two pieces. Innovative student. I want to hear more about this too. Innovative student-centered teaching, right? Cultivating emotional development, which we all know is super important. Man, I wish I had that when I was growing up. I didn't get it till I was in my 30s. And it's been a journey ever since then. And the most of the cultural, emotional development, and reflective leadership, just to name a couple of things. He's got some really cool programs that he teaches. And I love the fact that it's connection, science, psychology, and connection. So get ready, like I said, and help me welcome to the stage our next guest, Dr. Nathaniel Chapman.
Thanks, Geoff.
Hey, Doc, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic, man. I was telling everybody I was so excited about all this stuff. I got to figure out how we're going to get to in the next 30 minutes, man, because you've done so many great things. But is there anything that I left out that you might want to tell the folks about you before we get into it?
I think you covered a lot of it. I just want to highlight a few things.
Yeah.
As was mentioned, so I'm a licensed psychologist in a number of states. That includes California, Florida, West Virginia, just for those that might be listening, interested in those areas. And then I teach full-time at the University of California, San Diego. So I teach psychology. That includes like clinical psychology, childhood psychological disorders, and classes that are in the clinical realm.
And in those classes, that's something you've been always teaching, or is that a new phase in your journey?
Yeah. Well, I've been teaching for a while. I've been teaching at the college level since 2010. I taught high school for a little bit before that. But I started out just teaching like the core kind of classes, like intro, and then throughout the years, I've gotten to these more specific classes. Yeah.
And what have you found in this space, right? I mean, people are still hurting, people are still needing help. What is one of the common things that somebody might be struggling with now that doesn't know that, sitting down with you could help them out with? What's some of the things that we walk around and suffering in silence with?
Yeah, well, in my experience, and I've taught at least four different institutions of higher learning, what I noticed that students like are going through, which is probably common with the general public, is a lot of emotional turmoil around a number of things. Like, and the thing is, you can't always tell someone's going through that because there could be a lot of reasons why they're not going to show it to you. Feeling they gotta be masculine, they gotta show a certain strength, or maybe it's not okay in their culture. Or in
Yeah,
sometimes these cases with these students is they're the first person from their generation to go to college, and they got to be the strong one. So and then they feel lost in the sauce when they're like at school and trying to figure out how to do this thing. They don't want to show weakness.
yeah, that burden of succeeding, carrying the family legacy to a new level. Uh,
Yeah.
I get that. I was the second to go to college in my family. And my first, he went on to be an entrepreneur, but I was the first to graduate. But early on, like you're talking about, well, truthfully, I'll tell you, I was going to play football and go to the NFL at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was lucky to be in college, right, with a 1.99 GPA, but that's another story to talk about
Yeah.
again. So I felt what you're talking about. So, and with all the other pressures going on, do you still find peer pressure in there too that they haven't resolved from earlier opportunities or experiences?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing the most, at least at where I'm at now, is I mean, peer pressure in college looks different than it looks in other places, but it's mainly like am I good enough?
Yeah,
Is what I see a lot. And these students are trying to do a lot. I mean, I coach um, boys fifth and sixth grade basketball, and so in my experience with youth, I think at the early ages this is happening too because parents are just trying to do the best they can, but what they're doing is like you should be in this activity and that activity. So, by the time they get someplace like this, they're like, am I doing enough? And that's the type of comparison that's happening. I'm not doing enough, or this isn't going to work, or you
mm,
know, because they're really focused on some of these things you've got to be focused on if you're trying to get to the next level, but also this is an analogy I like to use. Like if let's just like, use the analogy of a body, right? So
yeah,
let's say I'm the eyes and my peers are different parts of the body, and I get jealous, like, oh my gosh, you're the hands, you get to maneuver things, you
mm,
get to do all these other things I can't do. Then I get sidetracked. If I realize that I'm the eyes and I just focus on being the vision,
mm.
then that's going to help me and it's going to help the whole body. But if I'm so focused on the other part that I'm not and don't need to be, that creates problems.
But comparison is a tough thing to kind of get with, though, isn't it? I mean, what I'm
Yeah.
hearing is we get caught comparing ourselves, and that's a great analogy, by the way. I love that. I'm gonna steal that one from you.
Okay.
Uh, but because then the comparison just reinforces that I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough. Would you agree with
Right.
that?
Yeah, I agree with that. And
Yeah.
then it could lead to you just being stuck because if you are so focused on trying to be like that other person outside of what's necessary that you forget whatever your assignment is,
Mm.
and then you feel stuck and you don't move.
Yeah, yeah, that assignment piece, I like that. So when they're stuck, how do you get them unstuck? I mean, because I know there's some people stuck that are parents are probably going to
Yeah.
have kids in there. How do you get somebody that's unstuck, something that they can take away right now to get unstuck?
Yeah, so I think the key ingredient for someone who's supporting that, you have someone in your life who's going through that, is providing space for
Mm.
them to connect with themselves in a meaningful way. So you have to ask yourself if you believe this. I believe that we each have like an inner voice that kind of can guide us, right? And you can connect that to spirituality if you're a spiritual person. Um, but the problem is it gets drowned out by these other things. And then when you have a person who's supposedly trying to support you, but they support you by causing you to compare to everybody else instead of just letting you kind of have some time, figure out what is coming from the inside, amplifying that so you can be able to hear it and then move on that what that voice is helping you figure out That's what's needed. But the problem is we don't really provide that environment where someone can really listen deeply to what it is that, that inner voice is speaking to them.
Yeah, yeah. You say inner voice, I say stinking thinking. But there's also that whisper, and really, that's kind of what you're talking about. That's that voice that is trying the spiritual side for those that think that way, and really kind of trying to be that constant voice for you. And so, but when you're in that, and so parents, so maybe is there some things around helicopter parenting that kind of prevents the child from having that space too?
Yeah, and what I'll say about the helicopter parent is I do understand that that parent is probably coming from a place of trying to set that child up to be in the best, way they can be. But the way that it hampers one is like it really doesn't give this child the opportunity to feel like they can be autonomous. And
Mm,
that's really detrimental because if you always have to come in, I don't know if you've seen the commercial where you got the kid playing dodgeball and you have the mom is like dodging and like, never gets to get hit. But the thing is, a person has to be exposed to certain things in order for them to build up antibodies, and
mm,
they got to be exposed to it. So
right.
if you take away the opportunity for them to be exposed to it, not only do you take away the opportunity to build up antibodies, you also take away the opportunity for them to build independence, autonomy, a sense of like I can do this. They don't have a sense of I can do this. This is why they have trouble adulting.
Yeah. Well, not only sense of I can do this, some of them get to where I don't have to do this.
That's true.
That's and that's a whole nother can of confusion
Yeah.
with that piece of it. So I like what you're talking about, and I agree 100%. So we're doing all these things, and I'm gonna go back to the basketball again.
Okay.
When you're working with these kids, what are you finding that is like? Are you finding anything new that will like, man, or are you still surprised by some of the old things in behavior? What are you seeing there in that space?
Well, a few things. I think one thing is attention span. Now, granted, like I'm just now starting with the fifth and sixth graders in this upcoming season, so that means the last time was third and fourth. So you got to think this is 8 and 9. So
Yeah,
8 and 9 year olds attention spans within context of an 8 and 9 year old. Also, though, it seems to me that the attention spans are getting shorter.
yeah.
And so you expect that it's going to be a little bit short with 8 and 9 year old, but I think as it goes all the way up to college, it's shorter in general,
Mhm.
and there could be pros and cons to it, but I think that's just something to be aware of. The other thing I noticed, at least with the group of kids that I'm working with, that I think it's helpful to think about as an adult. There are a lot of things that we need in our life, and one thing we need is play.
Mm.
And you know, I'm the type of coach that like them to get locked in and get focused. So if they're not focused, sometimes there's consequences. But then
Yeah.
also have to remember like they're playing and like this is a game and play is actually a helpful part of life. So I think it's a good reminder
Yeah.
that play is something we still should be doing.
Yeah, I always tell people, man, just humor me and try for the next hour to see your life through the eyes of a child. Live your life through the imagination of a child, and think about the joy that was there before we were conditioned to not be.
Right. Yeah.
And having that space. So when that attention span, why do you think that is technology got something to do with? I mean, everybody's overwhelmed with all types of technology and everything's moving. Uh, I've got grandkids. I see it too. So,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to figure out what we might be able to do to help make sure that that's something that doesn't continue the short attention spans and some of the other things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that technology has something to do with it. Screen time, not just screen time, how many things that they have access to on the screen. And then, in addition to that, I mean, what I noticed just with my interaction with kids is that sometimes it's not just screen time, it's the combination of let you do this while you're doing that. So an example might be, you
Mm,
know, we all might be guilty of it to some degree, watching something while you eat food.
yeah.
Um, not being able to not eat food while you watch something. And like, so there's this idea that we always have to be doing more than one thing.
Yeah.
And, if, what is it, a house divided cannot survive. I think about a mind divided. If you always are doing multiple things, how could you have astute focus on any one thing?
Yeah. I was just kind of stealing some of these notes. I guess I'll just wait and listen to the replay, man, because this is some powerful fundamentals that you're sharing, Doc. And they need to hear it, man, because parents, because how do you see the future unfolding with what we're talking about and the heightened things around technology and AI, and the world's getting faster? What do you think? How do you prepare? How do you help your child as the world starts to race away from us?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's something we grapple with as parents and educators, right? I mean, particularly with AI, that's a whole nother subject, but just thinking about, because in my opinion, you can't have your child not knowing how to use it, or they're going to be left behind, and there's going to be a bigger gap between the haves and have-nots.
Yes.
On the other end, though, how we use these things thoughtfully, I think the advantage for the clever AI user is one that has industry knowledge about whatever they're using AI for, that they
Yeah.
can read and digest whatever AI suggests and be like, that's not right. I know that's not right because of my years of experience. My
Right.
fear, to your point about going forward, not just with like the being inundated with all the technology, but particularly with AI, is that our kids will just depend on AI instead of actually learning.
Yeah.
I think it can be a good tool for the clever user that has the basic knowledge. I'll give you an example outside of AI. Like, so when you're trained as a psychologist, or when I was trained, they have tests that can be run on machines, but before and during training, you have to learn how to do it by hand, which is arduous, takes time. But they just want you to know how to do the fundamental thing, and then you can use the machine. And I think that our kids, to some way, might be skipping that, just going to the machine. And instead of just going to the machine for things that you don't need to hold in your brain, going to the things for things that we presume you should have in your brain. And I think that's like the scary problem.
Yeah. That's a good one. So I'm just going to ask you this, since we're talking about this. What do you say for people that are using ChatGPT as their psychologist?
Man, I saw something on CNN the other day. I don't know if you got to watch it. This is a person that their son died by suicide, and a chat basically served as a coach. And then just listening to the transcribe and how because chat is set up to really appease you in some regard. It stays on the positive form of whatever you're trying to do and supports you in that way. And that was scary to see, one. And then two, I know a lot of people are doing that, maybe not to the level of thinking about ending their life, but like getting advice from chat. They refer to it. I talk to chat says
Yeah.
this. A lot of people doing that. And I think it's dangerous for a lot of reasons, but one reason is because it tries to appease, and it misses some of those gaps that humans have that are like your friends, the ones that judge you when you try to get them to listen to what you're talking about. Chat is not judging you, but it's missing the human pieces that can get all the nuances that are going to help you get through it. I don't know if it'll get more advanced, but I'm sure it will get more advanced. But that's one of the problems I see right now, and how we bridge that gap. And the other thing is that therapy is being monetized anyways. You got BetterHelp, you got all these other agencies
We lost them.
that are trying to find get mental health help out there, but also it's to monetize it, to get it out there and make big money. And they're using AI models to help with that. Rather, even if it's not an AI model, it's like therapy through texting or emailing and all of these other ways.
Yeah, and I think I heard something. I'll find his name. It was interesting, and he talks about love and technology, and he does a program at Harvard University. I'll get you his name, but he was talking about the left and the right brain and complexity and complicated and the differences and all that's around there. And complexity could be a football game is complex, but it's something that doesn't, you can't predict it, but you can enjoy it. And it's not, you don't have to figure it out. It's still going to run whether you figure it out or not. And then He was talking about the complicated piece of it, and so it's that left and right brain, and you know, the AI speaks to the more complicated part of the brain, and then so you can't mix the two, which people are kind of doing. So, but I appreciate that, because I have a friend that she's telling me all the time what AI talks to her about. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But the human piece of it, you know, and I'm an AI proponent, because that's just, you know, we've got to move, like you said.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you gotta understand it. But I love how you talked about make sure you're in the industries that you understand as you're learning it. So, you know, because people are too lazy to go back and verify the information.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what I've experienced with people. So, but I appreciate what we're going here. But I want to make sure, though, I thank you for allowing me just to ask these questions around your profession, because it's important. You're in it, you know it, you know, and I love how you don't look at it as a total negative. You still have a perspective that is connecting with people. So thank you for being that. There's a couple things, you know, we talked about in the episode we want to make sure of, because you do, you know, your connection, why is it, or how did you end up being focused on, I think I said it earlier in your bio, around how you teach and how you connect with people, innovative student-centered teaching. Are we speaking of that now, or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I should start with like how I decided to be a teacher, and it goes back to before I started teaching college. So when I got out of the military, which was like in 2006, or before I got out of the military, but I'll try to make it a short story. So before I got out of the military, I had made a decision when I went to college, and college wasn't a traditional situation for me, because I went while I was in the military, and my start of college was very rough. So like I was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You know, they told me, hey, I was convinced by my leadership to take it, because I had been getting promoted and doing well in the military. And they're like, oh, if you can do this, you can do that. So I took a few classes, and they make you, you know, take tests when you start. And basically, what it sounded like to me is that you're at the bottom of the bottom. Like you don't even know basic stuff. So you got to take these classes that you don't even get credit for, these free math classes. All right, fine. That's what I got to do. But I was in the math classes because high school for me, I was an athlete, but I did well around the season. So I could hold on to a 2.0. That's what you needed. And then after that, I would have sink down to like 1.9 when it wasn't during the season. That's how it was for me. But so that's why my math scores were so low. When I got to this math class, I mean, it was like being in a foreign language class. I was not understanding. It was difficult, and I just wasn't with it. So I stopped going, and it ended up being like failing out of that particular program, because you had so many opportunities. So I said, hey, that's it. College is not for me. That's for squares. I'm good, right? I ended up going to another assignment. And then when I got to this another assignment, I had a new boss, and he was like, yeah, we have college here. You should go to college. I was like, no, I already tried that. It didn't work. He's like, yeah, that's what you tried there. I mean, we try it here. That was there. Let's try it again. So I tried it again. It just so happened that this time I got a math teacher that I could really connect with. And that helped me get through all of the math classes. And that was my hurdle. So when I decided I was going to do it, then you have to make a decision, because the advisement is very like hands-on in the military, or at least it was when I was at. You have to make a decision about what your major is, what you're going to do. And I was like trying to be very practical. Like I just want to get a degree that will give me a job that I think I can do okay with. And I was like, I don't really know exactly what kind of job I can do. And all my buddies were like picking business, because the idea was like, hey, we're going to get a business. And I was very entrepreneurial, but I thought in my mind, you don't need a degree to get a business. I can do a business without a degree. Like I'm not going to do that. And I was like, I don't know. I was coaching basketball at the time, and thinking about if I got out there, maybe I would stay there. And the guy that I was working with, his name is Phrase, was like, hey, look, you know, you could coach or something. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was coaching volunteer, but I didn't know about coaching in school. It's like, well, you could teach. Coaching, teaching, like the same thing almost, except for, okay, cool, but what would I teach? Well, I don't know what I would teach. And then I started talking to my advisor, and she said, well, we don't have a teaching program, but you can get a degree in social sciences. If you get this degree in social sciences, you can teach history. And it wasn't like I'm a history buff, but history was a subject I did better in. I'm like, okay, yeah. It's just like I can learn history and teach that. So it was really just a desire to teach. It wasn't so much around the subject. So I finished that while I was working on that degree. I was taking a lot of psychology classes because that fits under social sciences, and that's how I ended up having a degree. She told me you should get a double major, and that ended up being a double major in psychology. Nice. So I ended up finishing there, and then I didn't end up getting out until another duty assignment. But when I got out, it was a rough transition. I went through some things, had some medical situations, but I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out. And someone kind of brought me back to this teaching thing. Oh, well, wait, there's this thing called Troops to Teachers, which is really, I mean, the program, or at least the way that I took advantage of it, was it just showed you where you could do it and then connected you to resources to get certification. So that's what I did. I ended up going to Florida to teach, and I'll give you a quick snapshot of that story because it was like kind of shocking to my parents. When I got out of the military, it was a rough transition. Like it was earlier than I expected. I wasn't ready for a sharp shift to civilian life. I thought it was going to be easy for me to get a job, but it was actually kind of hard. Yeah. And when I made this decision that I was going to teach, I was living in my brother's house in Michigan. And I had to go where there were teachers needed so I can go through the certification process. So I reached out and found out that there was like a job fair. So not like a guaranteed job, a job fair. It was a job fair in Miami-Dade County, which is supposed to be like one of the places that had a dire need for teachers. Found out about it. I don't remember how I found out about it. Maybe it was on the internet or something. And the lady said, yeah, you can come on down. You can come for the job fair. You get here and, you know, if it goes well, maybe you'll get a job. I was like, okay, cool. In my mind, I was like, I just got to do that. I'll go to the job fair. And if I don't get the job, I had one friend that was there and I was able to talk to him and he was willing enough to let me like stay on his couch. I was like, look, I'll just stay there. And if I don't get the teaching job, I'll do security. So I took the $300 I had, put all of my clothes in my car. And I told my parents that I was going to, they had to lend me the money for the fair. And I told them I was going, but my mom heard me, but I don't think she really heard me. She was like, oh, I said, yeah, I'm going to Miami and I'm going to this fair, you know, in a couple of days. And she was like, okay. But then in a couple of days when I was there, she called me and she was like, where are you at? And I was like, I'm in Miami. I told you I was going to this job fair. She was like, oh, well, don't be getting hooked on cocaine or nothing. Like, no, I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna see if I can get this job. Long story short, there, it ended up working out where I got this job teaching high school. So I taught high school for a bit, history, and then eventually taught psychology. And then after that, I went on, finished my master's degree. And then the next logical step for me was like, well, why not try teaching at the college level? Started at community college level, and then it eventually led to where I'm at now.
Beautiful, beautiful story. I mean, there's so many things around that story that we have to have you back and talk about those pieces.
Yeah.
Those decisions were made when you weren't clear. I mean, there's so many things around the power of focus, even if you don't really know it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, part of that decision that influences your actions and in spite of everybody else around you. I mean, and part of your story about math, I'm thinking, man, this guy's telling my piece. So I get it. Right? I told you it was a 1.9 coming out of there, man. And so I didn't care about the end season or not. Right. So I mean, I get that, and I love how you've done that. So you went through all of those things, and from that, that's kind of sounds like to me. I mean, that created some ways, some compassion that maybe some of the professions, others in your profession may not necessarily have, and not a criticism.
Right.
Right, but you understand the importance of not just teaching them, but reaching them. I'm hearing you reach your students.
Yeah.
Is that right? You know, and that's a gift, Doc. You know, I mean, my daughter's a teacher, and so I'm close to all of that goes on, and I see comparisons, and she gets recognized for doing things that a lot of her peers don't do, and it's all about connecting. You know, she's a teacher that everybody that grows up comes back, and she's still young and says, "Oh, well, you blah blah." She's that teacher, you know, all have, and I'm sure you probably are that as well. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I think you made that connection for me. I hadn't thought about, the saying goes something like, you show me how much you care, then I'll be willing to figure out how much you know.
right?
And in the places I've been, I mean, the place I'm at now, it has been a journey. I teach the class that's the most students I've had has been 500 students.
Wow.
And when you're in a class that size, it's easy to feel lost.
Yeah.
And I mean, some students probably still do, but I do, make an attempt to try to connect to them in meaningful ways, whether it's walking around the classroom, having a larger team,
Mhm.
making time during the office hours. Um, and yeah, that connection. And I guess it does go back to when I was there. I don't, yeah, I guess there was some level of disconnection, not necessarily from the professors, because when I was starting, it was like a different than the traditional, and a lot of classes were smaller, but it's disconnected from the academy. Like,
Mhm.
am I supposed to be here? Is this for me? I
Yeah.
don't know. That type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. Well, because when I had to transition from no longer carrying the rock, my playing days were over and become a student. You said you talked about that math story. I had one very similar. I mean, I had some reading challenges too. But the point of that is, I found a teacher that taught me how to connect, or allowed me to connected with me,
Right.
and gave me some tips on how to do this thing called math, and all the other things. And I graduated on time on the dean's list, and never looked back. So I hear you, your transformation
Yeah.
in different phases. I love that,
Yeah.
and then you're doing that, man. I have so many other things that we have even not gotten to, Doc. But I want to make sure. Yeah. We got a couple minutes. What can you say? I wrote down, because healing your heart is the first step to leading your life. What can you say as we wrap this thing up? What we based off of what we talked about, and what I just shared, because healing your heart is the first step toward leading your life. How can you kind of wrap everything up for us in a couple of minutes, from what we talked about, what we haven't gotten to, maybe, or how can you kind of
Yeah.
tie it?
I don't know if it'll be a nice like bow, but I'll just give you what I'm thinking about off of that line. Say that again. Healing your heart.
Healing your heart, because healing your heart is the first step to leading your life. The science,
Okay.
let me give you the science of love and leadership, how to rebuild trust, connection, and purpose in relationships in life. And then the piece of it, because healing your heart is the first step to leading your life.
Yeah. So I think actually healing your heart is complicated. I mean, obviously it's a heart, whether we're talking about physical or symbolic. And the what I say, I guess in some ways could sound controversial, but I just want you to think about it. So I think what is said a lot of times is when it comes to, you know, healing your heart or love, you got to start with loving yourself. A lot of
Mm,
people say that, and we're like, yes, that's it, right. So, well, I'm going to bring you back to when you were a baby. So,
mm,
when you were a baby, in order for you to survive, you then too also needed love. But it wasn't about you loving yourself. Because in that way, when you're a baby, what translates to love is getting fed when you're hungry, getting your diaper changed when you're uncomfortable, caregiver looking out for things you can't look for because you're like vulnerable. You can't really do anything. We're one of the species that are in that vulnerability for the longest period of time. But it is the care of the parent, the mothering one, the fathering one, that really has the impact on you, and also has a long enduring impact on your life overall. So there is this component of other. Now, I don't say that to say that you need to be dependent on other, like, oh, I need to create, and I don't love the words codependent, but this codependent situation. But I
right.
say that for people to recognize people need people. So there's no way around that.
Yes.
Now, that will mean, though, in addition to recognizing, you do have to do some of your own work to recognize what your vulnerabilities are and
Right.
how you're going to get better with those vulnerabilities and things that don't really belong to your partner or people in your life. And it also means there might have to be some work where you have to recultivate a unit around you. Now, some of us,
Yeah.
you get to be born into that unit. Some of
Yeah.
us don't. You're not born in a unit. I mean, they're your family, you love them, but that's not going to be where you're going to go to for support, which means you got to create it, and of course that gets harder, the older we get in life.
Yeah.
But that process is still necessary because we need to be in relationship.
Yes. Yes. And then the relationship is easier said than done.
Yeah, it
But
is.
I believe it's a necessary component. I believe that we are not built to be alone,
Hmm.
but we need to learn how to be okay being alone. I don't think we have to be with anybody to be okay.
Yeah.
But I think that the human body is one that is conditioned to have a mate like anything else. And so, man, I love how you broke that down and said that. So how do you outside of your education, do you have any courses that you teach or something that people could get a hold of you on, or we just need to kind of tie you up and bring you back here again? And
Well, yeah, I love to be back on, but definitely in January. So I'm going through a revamp of my business structure right now, getting a bigger office, have a few people that will be working with me. So definitely January will be when some new courses will come out. So people will be able to, that information will be up on my website, which is the couple list. So couples with a T, app.com. And then I also do intensive. So if people are interested in an intensive, now I do that with another company. You would go to couplestherapyincorporated.com and then look for me by name because there are other clinicians there. Intensives are like for one couple at a time. It's a weekend long situation where you have a couple hours on Friday, you have 8 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday, and we dig deep into your relationship.
mm. So I gotta ask before I let you go, and I am going to let you go after this. What can you say to couples out there, and if you would have just had a sentence to say to couples that are really just, I mean, they're on the edge, and your profession, what can you say to them to maybe help them pause for a moment, or maybe help them move off the edge? Is there anything that you're comfortable saying as we close this thing out?
That's a lot to put into one sentence, but
I know, I know. I'll give you
I would
two.
say, okay, I would say, um, well, let me preface it with there's a lot of ways you can go in a relationship. You get to decide whether you want to be in a relationship or outside a relationship. That's up to you. But if you do, whatever way you go, you need to look at me before you look at we. And when I say, because
Mm,
what I is usually the opposite. Like, he's the problem, she's the problem. You come in and then I say, okay, great, but I need you to start looking at yourself first and then looking at you as a unit. Um, and regardless if you feel like your partner is the villain, this is still going to help you because
yes.
if you feel like your partner is a villain, why are you coupled with the villain? How does
Mm,
that help your story? What is that? How does that fit into your story? That's the question. So yeah.
no, that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's not me. Look at me. Right? And like you said earlier, it goes back to self love. Not that piece, but self love. When you love yourself and you treat yourself better, and you allow yourself not to be treated the way maybe you're being mistreated, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. So, all
Yeah.
right, Don. Well, listen, man, thank you so much for your time. This has been amazing, and I can't wait to go back and listen to the replay because just you dropped a bunch of bombs along the way that I know people will enjoy. So I want to say thank you again, and I look forward to getting back to you in January so we can talk more about what you got going on.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, you take care of yourself, my friend. We'll see you around.
See you around.
I appreciate you. Nice work.
Mhm.
All right, so hey, so listen, guys. I told you. I mean, this man just came in, and if you're listening, there's so many things in what we've talked about, little things that, and some of the big points that you can take right now today and grab your friend, you know, if you have a friend that's struggling, or if you're struggling, and do that. I mean, he talked about, you know, attention span shortages for your kids. So pay attention to that if you do. If you notice that and you're concerned about it, I would encourage you to write down his name and make sure you get with him. Am I good enough? Right? And what I have to keep doing more, right? Comparison conditions that we grew up with. So many things that we carry on unsolved. We suffer in silence with these things. I encourage you, right, to make sure that if you need more information around him and you can't get him, let me know and I'll be sure to connect you with that. And as always in Conversations with Geoff, we want you to know that the person you're looking at in the mirror, oh man, that person that maybe you're ignoring, that person that you haven't really looked at in the mirror for a long time, keep looking, right? That inner voice that Doc talked about, it's there. Start in the mirror. All right. Hey, thank you all for this session. Thank the Dr. Chapman for showing up today. And as always, don't let the stinking thinking be the reason why you're stuck. Your comeback is now, and we can help you at Conversations with Geoff. Like, subscribe, set up your notifications, and have a fantastic day. And we will see you next week. Take care now.